Alien girl demands, "You must marry me immediately." He says, "Is this a joke?" Jax froze, crowbar halfway under the lip of the crystalline altar. The air, thin and smelling of ozone and ancient dust, hummed with a sudden cold power that wasn't just the hum of the ringed moon they were currently hiding on. He hadn't tripped a physical alarm, he was sure of it. No lights flashed, no klaxons wailed. This felt worse. He lowered the tool slowly, muscles tight, scanning the vast, echoey chamber carved into the magnetic rock. It was empty. Or it had been a second ago. Now a figure coalesced from the deep shadows near the entrance arch. Not phased in, not teleported, but somehow just became visible, like turning up the contrast on a dark image. Tall, impossibly slender, with skin like polished obsidian that caught the faint light from the distant gas giant in shimmering cobalt veins. Crystalline growths angled from her shoulders and forearms, sharp and deadly. Her face was alien, elegant, marked with intricate glowing tattoos that pulsed with a soft internal light. And her eyes, large and multifaceted, fixed on him with an intensity that felt like physical pressure. A low hum vibrated in the air, originating from her throat nodes, a sound that seemed to resonate in his bones. He stayed still, hands raised slightly, crowbar still in one hand. "Okay, look," he said, trying for calm, aiming for reasonable. "Just looking. No harm done. Honest mistake. Thought this was an abandoned energy node. Didn't realize it was a fancy rock collection." He gestured vaguely at the altar and the precious pulsating crystals embedded within. Not a fancy rock collection, definitely sacred artifacts. His contact had promised they were unguarded, ripe for the taking. His contact was a dead man walking if Jax ever got off this rock. The alien woman didn't move. The humming intensified, a low thrum that spoke of immense contained power. Her head tilted infinitesimally. "Harm is not defined by physical destruction, human," she said, her voice a strange melodic resonance accompanied by the humming. It wasn't coming just from her throat, but seemed to vibrate through the air itself, directly into his skull. "It is defined by violation. You violated a sacred space." Her multifaceted eyes narrowed. "An unforgivable trespass." "Shit. Okay, change tactics." Sarcastic rogue mode engaged. "Yeah, figured that out when the pretty glowy lady showed up looking like she wants to use my spine as a back scratcher. My bad." He kept his hands visible. "So, what's the going rate for accidental sacrilege these days? Fine? A good public flogging? Can I pay in Republic credits? They're mostly stable this cycle." She took a step forward, fluid, silent. The air grew colder. "Your currency holds no value here. Your life holds little more." Her glowing tattoos flared brighter for a moment. "However, theft from the high altar requires a specific form of recompense. One ritual dictates." She stopped perhaps 20 feet away, close enough that he could see the delicate structure of her ear-like sensory organs, the faint shift of her skin color in the low light. "You disrupted an ancient energy flow, disturbed the balance. The only way to restore it is through a bond strong enough to absorb the disruption. A life bound to this place, to the lineage it serves." The humming in her throat nodes deepened, a powerful, demanding frequency. Her gaze bore into him, unwavering. "I am Zilia, speaker for the ancestors, heiress to the stone lineage. By ritual law, the one who claims the disrupted energy must be claimed in turn. You touched the altar. You touched this. Therefore," she extended a long, slender hand towards him, palm open, glowing lines radiating from her fingers. "You must marry me immediately." He stared at her hand, at her face, at the impossible demand hanging in the air like crystallized dust. His carefully constructed calm shattered. He couldn't help it. He barked a short, sharp laugh. "What? Marry you? Are you out of your damn mind? We just met. I was trying to steal your furniture." He gestured again with the crowbar. "And is this a joke? Because if it is, it's not very funny. And if it's not, you're seriously weirder than the rumors." Xylia's expression remained utterly alien, untouched by his outburst. "Jokes are inefficient. Humor is an illogical response to a ritual necessity." The humming in her throat nodes pulsed, a rhythm that was beginning to feel less like sound and more like something vibrating inside his chest cavity. "The claiming trial is not a proposal, human. It is a decree. Your trespass has triggered it. My lineage is bound to the altar's energy. The disruption must be bonded to the source. You are the disruption. I am the source's vessel. She took another slow step forward. You will submit to the trial. If you survive the stages of resonance and merging, the bond will be complete. You will be claimed. You will be bound. This is the form your recompense will take. This is your marriage. She tilted her head again, the multifaceted eyes studying him with unnerving intensity. Resistance is futile. The energy of the altar already binds a fragment of your life force to this space. Fleeing would be energetically painful and ultimately fatal. Jax felt a prickle on his skin, a faint localized ache near where he'd touched the altar. He dismissed it as nerves, or maybe some kind of low-level energy discharge from the crystals, but the way she said it, her confidence was absolute. Look, lady, Xylia, right? I don't know what kind of weird forced marriage trial you got going on here, but I am not signing up for it. I'm just a guy trying to make a living. I grabbed the wrong shiny thing. Put me in jail, fine me. Heck, cut off a hand if that's your thing. But marry you? To avoid, what, energetic pain? Get real. He hefted the crowbar instinctively, a stupid, pointless gesture against whatever power she wielded. I don't do ritual. I don't do permanent, and I definitely don't do spontaneous alien matrimony with someone I just met while robbing their place. She stopped a few feet away now, close enough that he could see the intricate fractal patterns of her glowing tattoos pulsing beneath the surface of her dark skin, almost like circuitry. The air around her seemed to shimmer slightly. Your understanding is limited. This is not affection. It is assimilation. The trial will test your compatibility for energetic merging. It will purify the disruption you represent or destroy you. Her voice dropped slightly, the humming becoming a deep resonance that seemed to fill the space between them. My part is to guide the process, to ensure the lineage's energy accepts yours. If it succeeds, we become one unit, bound by ritual and resonance. If it fails, a flicker in her eyes, perhaps, a predatory intensity, you will be reduced to dust, and the energy you stole will be reclaimed. Her hand remained extended. Yield, human. The trial is the only path now. There is no escape. He swallowed, the sarcasm feeling thin now. That prickling pain was spreading, a cold, dull ache deep in his bones, emanating from the direction of the altar. He didn't understand what she was talking about, but his body felt it. The humming was getting louder, more insistent. It felt like it was trying to pull him towards her, towards the altar. He took a hesitant step back, bumping into something behind him. The pain flared. Okay, hold on. What exactly does this trial involve? And this merging? Because if you mean like fusing our bodies into one giant weird rocky thing, I'm gonna have to politely decline. He kept his eyes locked on hers, trying to read something in the alien depths. Fear? Amusement? He saw only cold, unwavering determination. And how exactly do you force someone into a marriage? Xylia lowered her extended hand slowly, though the glowing lines on her skin still pulsed. Her multifaceted eyes never left his. The deep hum from her throat nodes tapered off slightly, replaced by a lower, resonant thrum that spoke less of immediate command and more of ancient, unyielding process. The trial involves stages designed to test compatibility on multiple levels, she explained, her voice still carrying that unsettling vibration. Physical endurance, mental resilience, and most importantly, energetic resonance. The altar's energy is intelligent, ancient. It recognizes your interference. It seeks either to expel it or to incorporate it. She stepped closer, forcing him to take another step back, the pain in his chest and bones intensifying with the distance. The claiming bond is not like the weak, temporary unions of your species. It is a permanent fusion of life forces, recognized by the collective consciousness of my people and the very substrate of this moon. She gestured with a sharp, crystalline finger towards the glowing altar. The act you committed has already initiated a preliminary anchor. You feel it now, yes? He definitely felt it. The ache was stronger, a cold current flowing from his chest towards the altar. He rubbed his sternum, unnerved. Yeah, well, feeling like I swallowed a handful of angry static doesn't exactly scream soulmate, lady. It is not a matter of emotion, human. It is ritual and survival. She moved closer still, forcing him back until he was pressed against the cold, hard rock wall. She stopped inches away, her presence overwhelming. He could smell a faint, mineral tang from her skin, feel the subtle vibration of her humming body. Her glowing tattoos cast faint patterns on his chest. The trial is overseen by the elders, They will prepare the ritual spaces, determine the specific challenges. My role is to guide you through them, to ensure you understand the requirements, to facilitate the resonance, and at the final stage, to perform the physical merging that seals the bond. She leaned closer, her head tilting again, her gaze dropping to his face. Her voice was lower now, a deep, resonant whisper accompanied by a faster, more insistent humming from her throat. It is a trial of surrender as much as strength. You must yield to the process, to the energy, to me. Her hand came up, not threateningly this time, but slow and deliberate. Her fingertips, cool and hard like polished stone, brushed against his jawline, tracing the stubble there. A faint pulse of energy seemed to flow from her touch, tingling pleasantly against the ache he felt. Your species is fragile, chaotic, but you have a unique energy signature. Unpredictable. The elders are wary. They believe you will poison the lineage. My task is to prove them wrong, or to oversee your dissolution. Her thumb grazed his lower lip. The buzzing in his chest intensified, but felt different now, less painful, more curious. So, this forced marriage is basically an assimilation process, and if I don't resonate properly, I get disintegrated. He tried to sound flippant, but his voice was rough. Her touch was distracting, the strange energy radiating from her fingers making his skin hum. Sounds like a hell of a prenup. Prenup, she echoed, the word strange in her resonant voice. Is that a custom of your species? A ritual exchange before bonding? Explain its function. An awkward sexual misunderstanding? Check. No, it's like a contract, saying what happens if we break up. Which, given the whole permanent fusion thing, seems kinda irrelevant here. He shifted slightly under her touch. Look, is there any other way? A different ritual? A loophole? There is no looping the ancestors' rituals, she stated, her voice firm again, pulling back slightly. The pleasant tingle vanished, replaced by the returning ache. The only alternative to the trial is immediate dissolution. The elders would prefer it. But the ritual has been triggered. You must face it. With me. Or you will face the energy's wrath alone. She turned, a swift, fluid movement. Come, human. The elders are preparing the first chamber. Your trial begins now. She didn't wait for his answer, simply strode towards the entrance arch, the humming in her throat nodes a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The ache in his chest pulled him forward like an invisible leash. He swore under his breath, swallowed his fear, and followed the alien woman who wanted to marry him, or kill him, or both. The first chamber was vast, lit by the soft glow of embedded crystals and crisscrossed by faint lines of pulsing energy. It felt less like a temple chamber and more like a testing ground. Magnetic fields rippled, making the fine dust particles in the air dance. Jagged rock pillars rose from the floor, some shifting slightly on unseen mechanisms. Xylia stood in the center, watching him as he was ushered in by two silent, armored Qatar guards whose polished obsidian skin seemed even darker than hers, their tattoos a dull, menacing red. They wore living armor that subtly shifted and reformed as they moved. Jax felt exposed in his battered cargo pants and worn synth leather jacket. The guards left, sealing the heavy stone archway behind them with a grinding sound that echoed in the vast space. Just him and her. The humming from her throat nodes was louder in the enclosed space, a resonant thrum that felt like it was vibrating the very air around them. The first stage is resonance, Xylia announced, her voice amplified slightly by the chamber's acoustics. You must align your energy signature with the chamber's field. It will test your ability to adapt, to yield control. Yield control? To a glowy room? Jax grumbled, stuffing his hands in his pockets. The ache in his chest was still there, a constant reminder of his predicament. How exactly do I do that? Meditate? Do I need special pajamas? Xylia's gaze was unwavering. You cease struggling against the energy that pulled you here. You allow it to flow through you. Your species is constantly fighting internal and external forces. For the trial, you must learn to surrender to them. She extended her hands, palms open, towards the nearest rock pillar. Faint lines of light flowed from her fingertips towards the stone, which began to glow with a soft internal light, humming in sync with her throat nodes. Observe. The energy responds to conscious direction, to alignment. You must find your own connection. She then turned her hands towards him. The glow from her fingers intensified, sending threads of light towards his chest. He felt a sudden, sharp tug, and the ache flared violently. Whoa! He staggered back, heart hammering. Okay, felt that. Not sure I like it. I don't want not? That is resistance, Celia stated flatly. The energy seeks you. Your body rejects it. This conflict will drain you. You must allow it in. She took a step towards him, her eyes fixed on his chest. Stand still, breathe, feel the pull, and let it resonate within you. He hesitated, but the pain was real, and fighting it seemed to make it worse. He forced himself to stand straighter, to take a deep breath of the dusty ozonic air. He focused on the pulling sensation in his chest, the one emanating from the altar he'd tried to rob. It was tied to this moon, to her. He tried to mentally relax around the feeling, to not push against it. Gradually, the sharp pain lessened, replaced by a dull, insistent thrum that mirrored the sound coming from Xylia. He felt a faint warmth spread through his chest, then his limbs. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't actively hostile anymore. He looked at Xylia. Her glowing tattoos were pulsing, and he could swear the veins of cobalt in her skin were shining brighter. Okay, I think I'm doing something. Your signature is beginning to align, she confirmed, a hint of something he couldn't quite decipher in her voice. Approval? Surprise? Good. Maintain this state. Now move towards the pillars. The energy is stronger there. You must resonate with multiple points in the chamber. He nodded slowly, feeling like he was walking through thick water. As he moved closer to a pillar, the thrumming grew stronger, and the pillar itself began to glow, syncing with the energy he felt inside him. He walked between pillars, feeling the different nodes of energy connect to him, flow through him. It was weird, unnerving, and strangely, exhilarating in a terrifying way. Xylia watched him, her stance relaxed, her humming a steady counterpoint to the chamber's rising energy field. You adapt quickly, human. Your chaos has unexpected applications. She began to move around the chamber too, her movements graceful, deliberate, interacting with the energy fields. She would touch a pillar, and it would flare, sending a pulse of light towards him, which he would absorb, integrating its rhythm into his own growing internal hum. It was like a bizarre, silent dance. Then, she did something unexpected. She walked directly towards him, stopping right in front of him, her multifaceted eyes glowing with soft internal light locked onto his. The humming from her throat nodes intensified, becoming a rich, deep resonance that vibrated through his entire body, shaking him slightly. She reached out, her fingers not touching him, but hovering inches from his skin, his chest, his temples, his hands. He could feel the heat radiating from her fingertips, the intense energy field they projected. Now, she said, her voice a low, resonant command that bypassed his ears and went straight to his brain. Resonate with me. Let the energy flow between us. Accept the link. He hesitated, his body singing with the strange energy of the chamber. Letting the room's energy flow through him was one thing, letting her energy flow into him, or his into her. That felt dangerously intimate. It felt like exactly what this whole claiming trial was probably about, the merging she'd mentioned. But her eyes compelled him. The humming was intense, persuasive. The ache in his chest, though dulled by the chamber's energy, was still a reminder of the alternative. He took a shallow breath. Okay, fine. Don't say I didn't warn you if my chaos messes up your pristine energy field. He relaxed his shoulders, unclenched his jaw. He focused on the feeling of the energy within him, the thrumming that matched the chamber's hum, and tried to open himself to her. Xylia's eyes flared. She lowered her hovering hands until her fingertips lightly touched his skin, the warm synth leather of his jacket, the back of his hands. A jolt went through him, not painful, but intense. It felt like two powerful currents meeting. The energy within him surged outwards, meeting the energy flowing from her. It was overwhelming, confusing. His thoughts scattered. He felt a dizzying rush of sensations, the cold, hard feel of her fingers, the powerful vibration of her body, the strange mineral scent that was hers. And something else, impressions, feelings that weren't his own, a sense of ancient duty, of immense power, of a deep, abiding connection to this place, these rocks, this energy. He saw fleeting images in his mind that felt alien, vast, empty moons, shimmering energy fields, the faces of beings with glowing tattoos. Was this the resonance? The merging? It felt less like a logical connection and more like a fundamental collision of realities. He gasped, his own humming starting a raw, untrained vibration in his own chest that tried to match the frequency of hers. Zilia's expression shifted, a subtle, alien change. Her eyes widened slightly, and her throat nodes vibrated with a higher, faster frequency. She leaned closer, her head tilting back slightly, as if savoring the influx of his energy. The touch of her fingers felt warmer now, almost hot. Her breath, surprisingly warm, stirred the fine dust near his face. The humming intensified, becoming a deafening roar inside his head, drowning out all other thoughts. He felt his knees weaken, the raw power of the link threatening to buckle him. Xylia's hands moved, sliding up his arms, gripping his shoulders. Her touch was firm, grounding him in the maelstrom of energy. She pulled him closer until their bodies were almost touching, separated only by the thin fabric of his clothes. Yes, she resonated, the sound vibrating directly into his skull, carrying a note of raw satisfaction he hadn't heard before. Feel it, human. This is the beginning of alignment. Your chaos does not break the field, it remixes it. Her grip on his shoulders tightened. The energy flowing between them reached a peak, a blinding white flash behind his eyes. He cried out, not in pain, but in pure sensory overload. And then, just as suddenly, it receded. The blinding light faded. The roaring hum dropped back to a manageable thrum. Xylia released his shoulders, stepping back slightly. She was breathing harder, her chest rising and falling faster than he'd seen before. Her glowing tattoos were blazing with light, and the cobalt veins in her skin pulsed visibly. Her multifaceted eyes were wide, fixed on him with an intensity that was now laced with something new. Curiosity, and maybe, just maybe, a flicker of awe. Remarkable, she resonated, the humming in her throat nodes slow and deep. Your energy signature is volatile, but adaptable. You did not break, you bent. She looked at the glowing pillars around the chamber, then back at him. The first stage is complete. You resonated. The elders will be surprised. She ran a hand down her own arm, her fingers tracing the pulsing lines of her tattoos. There is a strength in your fragility, human. A resilience I did not anticipate. She tilted her head, studying him again. The next chamber awaits. It tests not just resonance, but compatibility of form and will. Her voice was lower, almost conversational now, though still accompanied by the hum. Prepare yourself. The next stage requires closer interaction. The second chamber was smaller, darker, carved from a material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. It was dominated by a large circular platform in the center, made of the same dark light-absorbing stone. The air was colder, heavier. The humming was different here, a low guttural vibration that seemed to come from the floor itself. Xylia stood by the entrance as he was led in by the silent guards, her figure a silhouette against the faint light filtering in before the archway sealed. When they were alone, she stepped onto the platform, her glowing tattoos providing the only significant light in the space. They cast shifting, ethereal patterns on the dark walls and floor. This is the Chamber of Form, Xylia announced, her voice deeper here, resonating with the low thrum of the chamber. It tests the physical and mental compatibility required for the final merging. Here you must learn to yield not just energy, but structure. To allow your form to harmonize with mine with the lineage's needs. Jax shivered slightly. Though not from cold, the air felt oppressive. Harmonize our forms? What does that mean? Do I have to shapeshift? Because I'm pretty sure I only come in human, slightly beat up model. Xylia stepped towards the center of the platform, beckoning him forward with a slight inclination of her head. Her glowing tattoos flared, illuminating more of the space, revealing intricate pulsing patterns on the platform itself. It requires physical proximity, a dismantling of the barriers you erect between your form and another's. The chamber's energy will guide the process, but you must allow it. You must allow me. He stepped onto the platform, the dark stone cold beneath his worn boots. As he did, the low thrum from the floor intensified, vibrating up through his legs. The ache in his chest returned, stronger now, pulling him not just towards the altar's energy but towards Xylia. She stood opposite him, perhaps 10 feet away. What kind of dismantling? This is starting to sound less like a marriage trial and more like some kind of creepy biological fusion experiment. It is both, she stated simply. Marriage, in the Cathar sense, is the ultimate fusion. The claiming trial ensures the fusion is stable, beneficial to the lineage. This stage assesses your willingness to become pliable. She began to walk towards him, slowly, deliberately. Her glowing tattoos pulsed in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. The thrumming from the floor increased with every step she took, and the pull on his chest grew stronger, urging him forward to meet her. He stood rooted to the spot, watching her approach. She stopped directly in front of him again, only inches separating them. The low thrumming was now a powerful vibration that seemed to shake his very bones. He could feel the heat radiating from her body, the subtle movement of her crystalline growths, the constant resonant hum from her throat nodes. It was like standing next to a finely tuned engine that was also a living being. Her multifaceted eyes, glowing softly, held his gaze. She raised her hands, and this time she placed them flat against his chest, just below his shoulders. Her dark skin felt cool against his jacket. The instant she touched him, a jolt of energy surged through him, making his vision blur for a second. The thrumming intensified, and he felt a strange sensation, as if the boundaries of his body were becoming less distinct. A wave of dizziness washed over him. It felt like his cells were vibrating at a frantic frequency, on the verge of coming apart or reshaping. Xylia leaned closer, her forehead almost touching his. "Let go, human," she resonated, her voice a low, powerful command that pulsed directly into his mind. "Release the rigidity of your form. Allow the energy to flow through us, not just around us." Her grip on his chest tightened slightly. He felt her own body vibrating intensely against him. He tried to relax, tried to interpret the strange physical sensations as the pliability she spoke of. It was terrifying and oddly exhilarating, like being on the edge of something immense and unknown. He felt a strong pull, not just on his chest but deeper, at the core of his being, drawing him towards Xylia, towards a merging he couldn't comprehend. Okay, trying," he muttered, his voice strained. He focused on the feeling of her hands on his chest, the vibration flowing from her into him. It felt like his body was becoming one with hers, with the platform, with the very moon itself. The low thrumming reached a crescendo, a deep, powerful roar that vibrated through the chamber. The dark stone platform beneath them began to glow with a faint internal light, mirroring the pulse of Xylia's tattoos. The air grew heavy, charged with static electricity. He felt a tingling sensation spread across his skin, under his clothes. It intensified, becoming an intense itch, then a burning heat that seemed to emanate from within him. He gasped, arching his back slightly. Xylia's grip tightened further, holding him steady. "Feel it, human?" she resonated, her voice tight with intensity. "The barriers dissolving, the forms aligning. This is the threshold." The heat became almost unbearable, focused where her hands touched him, spreading outwards. His skin felt hypersensitive, every point of contact agonizingly distinct. And then, the burning shifted, transforming into a deep internal heat that pooled in his core, a hot, insistent thrum that demanded release. He squeezed his eyes shut, biting back a cry. Xylia's humming reached a frantic pitch, a high-frequency vibration that seemed to resonate directly with the heat building inside him. "Yield," she commanded, her voice raw. "Yield your form, yield your will. Become pliable." The heat surged, reaching an unbearable point. He felt a profound, undeniable need, driven by the energy, by the ritual, by her proximity. A need to connect, to release, to merge. His body, independent of his conscious will, pressed forward against hers. Xylia arched back slightly, her glowing tattoos flaring violently. Her multifaceted eyes, wide and luminous, stared into his as if seeing something beyond his physical form. The heat within him climaxed, a wave of pure raw energy surging through his body, outwards towards her, towards the chamber. He groaned, the sound torn from his throat. And then the energy receded, slowly, leaving him weak, trembling, and breathless. The heat faded, replaced by a strange, pulsing echo. Xylia released him, stepping back unsteadily. She ran a hand across her face, her chest heaving. Her tattoos were still blazing, and the deep cobalt veins in her skin pulsed with the energy they had just shared. Her eyes, however, were wide, fixed on him not with command, but with a raw, bewildered intensity. The air was thick with the aftermath of the energy surge. Neither spoke for a long moment, the only sound the low, returning thrum of the chamber and their own ragged breathing. He felt utterly drained, but also different. Lighter, yet somehow more grounded, and the ache in his chest was gone, replaced by a faint, warm connection that felt like a thread running directly to Xylia. Xylia stared at him, her multifaceted eyes tracing the lines of his face, his body. The raw intensity in her gaze was unnerving, a break from the cold command she'd shown before. Her throat nodes vibrated with a low, uncertain hum. "You did not dissolve," she stated, the obvious fact carrying a weight of disbelief. "The compatibility, it is higher than the elders predicted." She took a deep, shuddering breath, the crystalline growths on her shoulders catching the faint light. "Your form did not break. It flexed, like water against stone." She looked away, turning her back to him to compose herself, running a hand through the dark, crystalline hair-like structures that framed her face. The vibrant pulse of her tattoos began to subside, returning to their softer glow. He leaned against a wall, trying to catch his breath, his body still trembling slightly from the energy surge. "Yeah, well, told you I was resilient," he managed, his voice raspy. "So, does this mean I passed the harmonize your forms or disintegrate test?" Zilia turned back to him, her expression more controlled now, though the lingering intensity in her eyes remained. "It means you are compatible for the next stage," she said, her voice regaining some of its resonant authority, though softer than before. "The final merging, the sealing of the bond." She walked past him towards the archway, which ground open with a low rumble. Two different guards stood there now, larger, encased in thicker, darker living armor, their red tattoos pulsing visibly. The air beyond felt colder, sharper. "The chamber of binding awaits," Zelia stated, pausing at the entrance. "It is the heart of the sacred space. The act performed there is witnessed by the ancestors and etched into the moon's energy forever." She looked back at him, her multifaceted eyes holding his. There was no invitation in her gaze, only expectation. "The final stage requires total surrender. Physical, mental, energetic. You must yield to the bond, to the merge. To me. If you hold back, the backlash will be absolute." The way she said absolute left no room for interpretation. This wasn't just about him dissolving anymore. It sounded like it could affect her too. "Total surrender, huh?" he echoed, pushing himself off the wall. His legs felt surprisingly steady, and the connection to Zilia, that faint, warm thread in his chest, felt stronger, more defined. "Guess there's no half-assing a forced marriage, is there?" He walked towards the archway, towards her, the guards impassive sentinels. He stopped beside her, glancing at the menacing figures. "Just checking," he said, lowering his voice slightly. "If I do surrender, and we merge or bind or whatever the hell you call it, does that stop the elders from trying to turn me into space dust?" Zilia met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "If the bond is successfully sealed in the chamber of binding, you become part of the lineage," she resonated softly. "To attack you would be to attack me, to attack the lineage itself. Ritual law is absolute, even for the elders." A pause. "They will not be pleased. There may be consequences for me, for succeeding where they wished you to fail." He looked at her, really looked at her. Beyond the alien appearance, the dominant aura, he saw something else now, a weight of responsibility, a hint of defiance directed not at him, but at her own people. This wasn't just about punishing him. It was about her position, her duty, her own survival within her rigid culture. "So, basically," he said, a wry smile touching his lips despite the gravity of the situation, "I go from being a thief facing execution to being your problematic husband who pisses off your entire family?" Zilia tilted her head, the concept of problematic husband likely lost in translation, but she seemed to grasp the core of his meaning. Her throat nodes vibrated with a low, almost imperceptible hum that might have been the alien equivalent of a sigh. "You become claimed, bound, a part of the stone lineage. Your previous status becomes irrelevant. Your new status is entirely dependent on the strength and purity of the bond." She turned fully, her back to the guards. "The chamber of binding is empty now. The elders prepare the final energies from a distance. Come." There is no more time for delay. She began to walk down a short corridor deeper into the moon's core. He followed, the dark armored guards falling in behind him, flanking him like honor guards or wardens. The air grew even colder, drier. The thrumming from the rock became the dominant sound, a powerful resonant pulse that seemed to sync with his own heartbeat, a rhythm now undeniably linked to Zilia's presence beside him. He felt the thread connecting them, pulling him forward. He was walking towards a forced ritual marriage that would either save his life or end it spectacularly. with an alien woman who was both his captor and his only hope. And strangely, terrifyingly, some fundamental part of him was no longer fighting it. The chamber of binding was not grand like the first, nor as stark as the second. It was small, circular, carved from glowing white crystal that pulsed with a soft internal light, casting long, shifting shadows. In the center was a shallow depression filled with a liquid that shimmered like liquid moonlight. The air here felt alive, vibrating with an intense, focused energy that made the fine hairs on his arms stand on end. The guards remained outside the entrance. It was just him and Zilia. Her dark skin and glowing tattoos stood out starkly against the bright white crystal. The air filled with her humming, a powerful, resonant chord that seemed to vibrate in unison with the crystal walls. "This is the heart of the claiming," Zilia announced, her voice echoing slightly in the small space. She walked to the edge of the liquid-filled depression, her multifaceted eyes fixed on the shimmering surface. "The pool of memory. It holds the essence of the lineage, the resonance of every bond formed in this chamber since the moon coalesced." She turned to face him. Her posture was different now, less overtly dominant, more poised. Vulnerable, even beneath the ritual pronouncements. The final stage requires physical immersion in the energy, a merging of forms, yes, but deeper, an exchange of essence, of life force. The energy in the pool will accept or reject your presence, guided by the resonance we have built. She gestured to the pool. "Remove your outer coverings, human. You must stand before the ancestors and the energy unburdened." He hesitated, looking at her. She hadn't removed anything. "Me first?" he asked, a flicker of his usual sarcasm returning. "Or is this one of those leader leads by example situations?" Zilia met his gaze directly. "I am the vessel of the lineage's energy for this ritual. My form is already in harmony. Yours must be integrated." She didn't wait for him to agree. She reached out, her fingers going directly to the front of his worn jacket. She pulled the zipper down slowly, her eyes holding his. Then with a deliberate, almost tender movement that utterly contradicted her previous demeanor, she shrugged the jacket off his shoulders, letting it fall to the crystal floor. She moved to his shirt, unbuttoning it one by one, her gaze intense, studying his reactions. His heart hammered against his ribs. The air felt thick with anticipation. Her fingers brushed against his skin as she opened the shirt. It was a shock, her cool, smooth skin against his warmer, rougher texture. He felt the familiar flush of heat build in his body, a different kind of heat than the energy surges, but just as potent. He could see the intricate pulsing patterns of her tattoos up close now, sensed the power humming beneath her skin. "This is part of the ritual?" he asked, his voice low. "The disrobing?" "It is part of the surrender," Zelia confirmed, her voice a resonant whisper. "The shedding of the old self, the preparation for integration." She pushed the shirt off his shoulders, letting it join the jacket. He stood before her in just his pants. He was covered in scars from a life spent scrapping and surviving, pale lines crisscrossing his torso, a jagged one on his side from a close call with a bladed alien bounty hunter, faded bruises. He felt exposed, vulnerable under her alien gaze. Xylia's eyes traced the scars, lingering on the one on his side. Her humming shifted frequency, becoming a low, mournful sound for a moment before returning to its steady thrum. She reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against the scar on his side. "Your form is marked," she resonated, the sound filled with unexpected sadness or recognition. "By conflict. By intrusion." He flinched slightly at her touch but didn't pull away. "Yeah, well, life happens," he muttered. "Not exactly a pampered existence out where I come from." "The marks tell a story," Xylia murmured, her fingers still tracing the scar. "A story of resilience, of survival." She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "Perhaps the elders are wrong. Perhaps your form, marked by chaos, is not a pollutant, but a strength." She stepped back slightly, her eyes dropping to his waist. "The final layer, human, remove it, enter the pool. Surrender fully to the energy, surrender to the claiming." His groin tightened at her words, the direct command, the unexpected intimacy of the act they were about to perform. "Remove his pants, stand naked before this alien woman, in this glowing crystal chamber, and step into a pool of shimmering liquid for a ritual merging that was essentially a forced marriage." It was insane, but looking into her eyes, feeling the intense pull of the energy, the thread connecting them that had grown with every stage of the trial, He knew there was no turning back. This was it, the point of no return. He nodded slowly. His fingers went to the button on his pants. Zelia watched him, her glowing tattoos pulsing, her throat nodes humming a powerful, demanding rhythm that seemed to vibrate deep in his core, urging him forward, urging him to yield. He stripped the last layer of clothing, stood naked in the ancient chamber of binding. The air felt cool against his skin, but the internal heat, the echo of the energy surge, still pulsed within him. Zilia's gaze swept over his body, lingering again on the scars, the lines of muscle. Her humming deepened, became richer. There was no judgment in her eyes, only intense, alien observation. She extended a hand towards the shimmering pool. Now she resonated, her voice low and powerful, filled with ancient command and a strange new vulnerability. Enter the pool. Become one with the lineage. Become one with me. He stepped towards the pool, the cool crystal floor beneath his bare feet. The shimmering liquid looked cold, deep, ancient. He took a breath, letting it out slowly. Surrender, yield, merge. Okay, here we go. He stepped into the pool. The liquid was not cold, but warm, almost hot, thick and viscous, clinging to his skin. It hummed with energy, a deep, powerful thrum that vibrated through his entire body, resonating with the energy he felt within himself. He sank down until the liquid reached his waist, then his chest. It felt less like water and more like liquid light swirling around him, penetrating his pores, reaching into his bones. He felt the energy surge again, stronger than before, overwhelming. He groaned, his head tipping back. The raw power of the moon's energy flowed through him, cleansing, reshaping, merging. Zelia stepped to the edge of the pool, her glowing form illuminated by the liquid light. She reached out, placing her hands on his shoulders again, just as she had in the chamber of form. This time there was no barrier. Her smooth, cool touch against his bare skin sent a jolt through him. Her hands slid down his chest, fingers tracing the scars, following the lines of his muscles. She lowered herself into the pool with him, the shimmering liquid clinging to her obsidian skin, making her tattoos blaze like celestial fire. She moved closer, the liquid parting around her, until she was standing directly in front of him, the warm, humming liquid swirling around both their bodies. Her multifaceted eyes, luminous in the chamber's glow, fixed on his. The humming from her throat nodes was a powerful, resonant chord that filled the chamber, echoing in his skull, syncing with the thrumming of the pool and the pulsing of his own blood. "Feel it, human," she resonated, her voice raw, filled with a power that went beyond mere sound. "The energy accepts you. It flows from the pool, through me, into you. The claiming is complete. The bond is sealed." Her hands moved lower, sliding down his chest, across his abdomen, to his waist. Her touch was incredibly sensitive, sending shivers through him. She leaned closer, pressing her body against his through the liquid, her smooth, hard form against his softer, warmer one. The liquid amplified every sensation, every vibration. He felt her humming deep within his own body now, a resonant echo of her power. The energy in the pool surged again, pulling their bodies together, melting the last vestiges of resistance. Their forms pressed together, skin to skin, body to body, the liquid swirling around them, binding them. Zelia tilted her head back, a low, guttural sound escaping her throat. A sound of power, of release, of something ancient and primal. Her glowing tattoos flared, pulsed, then began to shift, spreading like wildfire across her skin, extending thin, glowing tendrils towards him. As they touched his skin, they didn't burn, but pulsed with warmth, sinking into him, mimicking the patterns of his scars, weaving new ones that mirrored her own intricate designs. He cried out as the energy within him, the heat that had been building, climaxed, a wave of intense pleasure and sensation washing over him, blinding him, deafening him to everything but the roar in his ears and the powerful, insistent humming of Zilia's body pressed against his ba. He felt a profound, irreversible shift occur deep within his core, a click, a lock engaging, a bond formed, tangible, absolute, etching itself onto his very being. His energy signature was no longer just his own. It was twinned with hers, with the moon's energy, with the lineage. He was claimed. He was bound. The energy receded slowly, leaving behind a profound stillness. The roaring in his ears faded, replaced by the gentle lapping of the liquid and the soft, constant thrumming that was now as much a part of him as his own heartbeat. He stood in the pool of memory, naked, shivering slightly, bound to an alien woman he'd tried to rob hours ago. Zelia was still pressed against him, her forehead resting against his shoulder, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Her glowing tattoos had settled, no longer blazing, but the new patterns they had etched onto his skin pulsed faintly, mirroring hers. The feeling of the bond was startlingly real, a warm thread connecting their cores, humming in perfect synchronicity. It wasn't just energy, it felt emotional, physical, something entirely new and overwhelming. Zelia stirred, lifting her head. Her multifaceted eyes looking directly into his were wide, luminous, filled with a complex swirl of exhaustion, triumph, and something else he couldn't place. Confusion? Regret? The bond is sealed, she resonated, her voice hoarse, the humming in her throat nodes weak for the first time since he met her. You are claimed, human, by the lineage, by me. She pushed away from him slowly, the viscous liquid clinging to their skin. He saw the faint glowing lines on his own body now, mirroring the patterns of her tattoos, intertwined with his scars. They were subtle, internal lines that pulsed with the same soft light as hers. What did you do? He asked, his voice shaky. He touched the glowing lines on his arm, a bizarre new layer of himself. The marking, Zelia explained, her voice regaining a little strength though the weariness remained, a physical manifestation of the bond. It signifies your integration into the lineage's energy structure. It cannot be removed. She stepped out of the pool, the liquid dripping from her obsidian skin. She didn't look away from him. The ritual is complete. You are now Cathar, by bond and blood, my consort, my partner. She used the Cathar word for partner, which resonated with a meaning far deeper and more complex than the human equivalent. He stepped out of the pool too, the liquid falling away. The glowing lines on his skin pulsed more strongly now that he was in the air. He felt that deep, connected thrumming more intensely outside the liquid. He was bound to her. He looked at her, at the undeniable physical proof of the bond on his own body, at the strange mix of emotions in her eyes. Partner? Consort? He repeated, the words feeling surreal. So, this whole forced marriage trial thing actually worked? The energy accepted you, she said, running a hand over her own marked arm, more completely than I anticipated. Your resilience, your willingness to yield at the final moment. She looked down at the crystal floor, her shoulders slumping slightly. The elders, they will sense the strength of the bond. They will know. The confidence she'd projected earlier was gone, replaced by a palpable anxiety. What does that mean? They will know? What will they do? The claiming of an off-worlder, a chaotic element like you, was unprecedented, she explained, looking up at him, her eyes troubled. They sanctioned the trial only as a means to dispose of you while upholding ritual law. Your successful integration was not part of their plan. It upsets the balance. It questions their judgment. She gestured towards the entrance archway, which was still sealed. They will not celebrate this union. They will see it as a threat. A deep, resonant thrumming started, different from the ambient energy of the chamber. It was rhythmic, deliberate, and felt heavy with menace. From beyond the sealed archway, he heard the distinct clank of heavy armor shifting, the low growl of alien voices, not the silent guards who had brought him here. These sounded different, more aggressive. Zelia straightened, her posture becoming rigid, her glowing tattoos flared, not with bonding energy, but with warning. They are here, she stated, her voice tight. They are sending their enforcers. They will try to nullify the bond, to eliminate the unpredictable element. She looked at him, her eyes regaining their intensity, but now it was a shared intensity, a fierce protective focus. The ritual law protects us within the sacred space. But outside, the elders will hold sway. She strode to where his clothes lay discarded on the floor, picking up his jacket and shirt with surprising efficiency. Dress, human. Quickly. The bond makes us a single unit. We face this threat together. My survival and the lineage's future now depend on yours. Jax quickly pulled on his clothes, the fabric feeling strange against his skin where the glowing lines pulsed beneath the surface. The ominous thrumming from beyond the door intensified, accompanied by scraping sounds and sharp alien commands. Enforcers? They just send a death squad when they don't like the outcome of their own ritual? He asked, buttoning his shirt with clumsy fingers. Zelia was already moving towards the chamber entrance, placing a hand on the archway. The white crystal pulsed under her touch. They interpret ritual in a manner that preserves their power, she said, her voice hard. Your survival challenges their authority. The bond makes you immune to ritual dissolution within this space, but they can still employ non-ritual means. Assassination. She turned, facing the archway, her stance defensive. Her glowing tattoos were blazing again, and the low, steady hum from her throat nodes was laced with a fierce determination he hadn't heard before. Our bond is new, but it is real. It links our energies, our physical forms, our very destinies. To harm one is to harm the other. We must use this connection. We must fight. The archway began to groan, a deep grinding sound as the heavy stone seal started to lift. Light from beyond spilled into the chamber of binding, illuminating the forms of the arriving Koarthar. They were bulkier than the guards, their living armor darker, spikes protruding from shoulders and forearms. Their red tattoos pulsed with aggression. They carried heavy sonic disruptors and plasma lances. Great, just great, Jax muttered, pulling on his jacket. From unwilling groom to fighting off the in-laws, what a wedding day. He looked around the small chamber. No cover, no weapons, just a pool of glowing liquid and crystal walls. Any chance this place has a back exit? Or maybe this pool turns us invisible? Zilia didn't laugh. Humor was illogical, but she gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of her head. The chamber of binding has only one entrance. We face them here, together. She extended a hand towards him, not in command this time, but in invitation. Our bond is a weapon. It links our perceptions, our movements. Trust it. Trust me. He hesitated for only a second. The ache in his chest was gone, replaced by that constant warm thrumming connection to her, a connection that felt strangely natural now. It was terrifying, yes, but also anchoring. He wasn't alone. He took her hand. Her skin was cool, hard, but the touch sent a powerful surge of energy through him, a shared jolt that felt like adrenaline mixed with something entirely alien. The glowing lines on his skin pulsed violently in response. All right, wife, he said, forcing a grin. Let's see what this unprecedented union can do. The archway opened fully. 3 massive Cathar enforcers stepped into the chamber, their weapons raised, their red tattoos glowing menacingly. Their collective hum was a deep, guttural growl. Xylia and Jax stood side by side at the edge of the pool, their joined hands a strange symbol in the glowing space. The lead enforcer stopped, his multifaceted eyes sweeping over them, lingering on their joined hands, on the glowing lines on Jax's exposed neck. He let out a low, guttural sound of disgust. The bond is corrupt, he resonated, his voice heavy with disapproval. The off-worlder's chaos poisons the lineage. The speakers demand dissolution. The bond is pure, Xylia declared, her voice ringing with authority, amplified by the chamber's energy and the power of their connection. Her free hand swept out, a gesture of defiance. He is claimed! He is lineage! You violate sacred law by threatening us. Ritual allows for corrective measures against impurity, the enforcer snarled, raising his sonic disruptor. Yield, Eris. Surrender the contaminant. Zilia squeezed Jax's hand. He felt her intent, her energy flowing into him, guiding him. It wasn't telepathy in the conventional sense, but a deeper shared awareness, a sense of us. Move right, the feeling pulsed in his mind. He reacted instantly, pulling Zilia with him as the first enforcer fired. A wave of pure force washed over the spot where they had stood, impacting the crystal wall with a high-pitched shriek. He felt Zilia's energy flow, saw with a strange clarity the energy patterns of the enforcer's weapons, the subtle shifts in their armor. He wasn't just seeing with his eyes, he was perceiving with the bond. Okay, this is new, he muttered, dodging another blast. Zilia moved with impossible grace, pulling him, guiding him around the small chamber. The bond enhances perception. Movement, she resonated, her voice tight with effort. Focus your intent, channel your energy through our connection. The enforcers advanced, their movements heavy, deliberate. They were built for brute force and overwhelming firepower, not the agile, connected dance Zilia was leading him through. Their sonic blasts shrieked off the crystal walls, making his teeth ache. Plasma lances cut through the air, leaving trails of superheated motes. Channel my intent? What, like wish them away? Jax yelled, ducking behind Zilia as she twisted, narrowly avoiding a plasma blast that vaporized a chunk of the crystal floor. He could feel her power, her focus, flowing through their joined hands into the bond and back to him. It made him faster, sharper, more aware than he'd ever been. The pool, Zalipia pulsed, the thought clear in his mind. Energy concentration. He understood. The claiming pool was the source, the heart of the bond's power in this chamber. They needed to draw on it. They scrambled towards the edge of the shimmering pool, the enforcers closing in. A sonic blast hit the crystal beside Jax's head, sending shards of light-infused rock scattering. "Careful with the sacred furniture, guys," he taunted, adrenaline surging. He felt Zilia's grip tighten as they reached the edge. Without a word, she plunged their joined hands into the shimmering liquid. A surge of energy, far more intense than before, ripped through them. The glowing lines on their skin blazed, casting flickering light on the enforcers' faces. The thrumming in the chamber became a deafening roar, the crystal walls vibrating. The enforcers hesitated, thrown off by the sudden power surge. The bond amplifies within the source. Zilia resonated, her voice echoing with power. "Strike them down!" She pulled their hands from the pool, and a wave of shimmering, charged liquid energy arced outwards, directed by her will, guided by their combined energy. It slammed into the lead enforcer. His living armor flared, his red tattoos pulsed erratically, and he cried out, stumbling back as his form seemed to flicker for a moment. He wasn't dissolved, but he was clearly disrupted. "It worked!" Jax yelled, amazed. "Your ritual bath is a weapon?" "The energy is not a weapon," Xylia corrected, pulling more energy from the pool, preparing another arc. "It is purification. They are impurity." She lashed out again, sending a blast of glowing liquid at another enforcer. He managed to raise a shield, but the energy still slammed into it, making it buckle and sparking violently. The enforcers, realizing the danger of the pool, began to retreat, blasting wildly at the ground around the pool to try and deter them. But the crystal floor simply absorbed the energy, feeding it back into the chamber, into the pool. "Flank!" Zilia pulsed, tugging his hand. They moved in unison around the edge of the pool, using the low lip for cover where possible. They were nakedly exposed, armed with nothing but their bond and the ancient energy of the sacred space. But against the rigid tactical thinking of the enforcers, their chaotic, bonded movements and unpredictable attacks were proving effective. They were learning to fight as one. He felt Zilia's intent, her anger, her fierce protectiveness. He mirrored it, focusing his own survival instinct, his defiance, into the shared energy. They weren't just two individuals, they were a single, unpredictable force. They unleashed another blast of liquid energy, then another, targeting the enforcers' weak points, the joints in their armor, the power conduits of their weapons. The enforcers, unable to fight effectively in the chaotic energy field emanating from the pool, and hesitant to simply blast the entire sacred chamber into rubble, fell back further, retreating through the archway. "Withdraw," one roared, his voice distorted by static. "Regroup, the claiming energy is too volatile here." Withdrawing was wise. The energy, amplified by their bond, was making the entire chamber hum and pulse with dangerous intensity. The moment the last enforcer retreated, the archway slammed shut with a final echoing crash. Silence descended, broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing and the thrumming of the claiming bond. Jax and Zilia stood at the edge of the pool, hands still clasped, the glowing lines on their bodies slowly dimming back to a soft pulse. They were safe for now, but the threat hadn't been eliminated, only repelled. They had won the battle for the Chamber of Binding, but the war with the Elders had just begun. Zilia slumped slightly against him, exhaustion finally catching up to her. Her grip on his hand was trembling. "They will return," she whispered, her voice weak, with greater force. "They will not allow this bond to stand." He held her hand tighter, feeling the warm, constant thrum of their connection. "Then we figure out what's next," he said, his voice calmer than he expected. He looked at the glowing lines on his skin, then at her face, illuminated by the soft light of the chamber. "Looks like I'm not just a thief anymore. I'm your husband, and apparently that comes with interspecies political problems and armed home invasions." He managed a tired, genuine smile. "Ready for phase 2, wife?" Zilia didn't smile back, but the intensity in her multifaceted eyes softened slightly. She looked at their joined hands, at the glowing lines on their skin, then back at him. "Phase 2? She echoed, the concept strange to her. "This is not a planned progression, human. This is survival." She pulled her hand from his gently, then placed a hand on his chest. over the faint, pulsing lines beneath his shirt. The bond is strong, stronger than any I have felt resonate from the pool's records. Her eyes searched his face. You did not dissolve, you did not break. You fought beside me, against my own lineage. A low, resonant hum vibrated in her throat nodes, a sound that felt less like communication and more like processing deep, complex emotions. Why? Jax shrugged, wincing slightly as his bruised muscles protested. Why? Because you were the slightly less terrifying option than dissolving into space dust. Because running wasn't an option? Or maybe, he paused, looking into her eyes, the glowing patterns on his skin throbbing in time with hers. Maybe because standing here, fighting with you against them, felt right. Weirder than hell, but right. He touched the glowing lines on his own chest. This bond thing. It's real, isn't it? More than just ritual. Zilia nodded slowly, her gaze unwavering. It is profoundly real. It links our life forces, our perceptions. In moments of high energy or shared intent, our thoughts become one. She hesitated, then took his hand again, her fingers intertwining with his. I felt your intent in the battle. Your ferocity, your protectiveness. Her humming intensified slightly. No Cathar has ever shown such spontaneous dedication to a bond not yet fully formed. He felt a flush spread across his face, unused to such direct, unvarnished acknowledgement, especially from someone who had threatened him with dissolution hours ago. Well, when giant armored aliens with plasma guns show up, dedication is a good survival strategy. He squeezed her hand. So, the elders are coming back, and this chamber is probably not going to hold forever. What's the plan? We can't just hang out here and wait for round two. Xylia looked around the chamber, her eyes scanning the crystal walls, the pool. The chamber of binding is saturated with our energy. It repelled them once. It may hold them at bay for a time. She turned back to him. But you are right, we cannot remain. We must leave the sacred space, navigate the lower levels of the temple. Temple? Jax raised an eyebrow. I thought this was just a magnetic rock moon. This moon is a sacred relic world, Xylia explained. The temple is carved into its core. It is vast, labyrinthine, designed to deter intruders, to test the worthy. She paused, her gaze sharpening. It was designed to test the worthy of the lineage. You are now lineage. A strange, calculating light entered her eyes. Perhaps the temple itself can aid us. The tests, the traps, they are meant to stop outsiders. We are no longer outsiders. Jax stared at her. You want to use the temple traps against your own guys? They ceased being my own guys when they chose to violate ritual to eliminate you, Xylia stated flatly. The lineage's survival is paramount. The Elder's rigidity threatens that survival. The bond with you offers a new path. She looked at him, a faint, almost imperceptible shift in her expression that might have been the alien equivalent of a challenging smile. Are you ready, human? To navigate a deadly ancient temple with your newly acquired alien wife, using our forced marriage as a weapon? He looked at the glowing lines on his arms, the warm thrumming in his chest that was tied to hers. He thought about the alternative, being disintegrated by an enforcer's blast. Yeah, he said, a grin spreading across his face, feeling a surge of reckless confidence. Let's do it. Lead the way, wife. Time to show your family what happens when you mess with the happy couple. Zilia nodded, a decisive movement. She turned and strode towards a different part of the crystal wall, one that seemed solid and seamless. She placed her hand against it, focusing her energy. The glowing lines on her skin pulsed, and a faint, high-pitched whine filled the air. A section of the wall shimmered, then dissolved inward, revealing a dark passage beyond. The temple tests are designed to read lineage resonance, Xylia explained, stepping into the passage. Our bond will open the paths. Be warned, human. They are no less dangerous for acknowledging us. Failure is still dissolution. She looked back at him, her silhouette framed by the dissolving wall. Come. Our future, improbable as it is, awaits. He followed her into the darkness, the humming of their bond his only guide, ready to face whatever ancient traps and angry in-laws waited in the depths of the Moon Temple. Their strange, forced marriage was far from over. It had just truly begun.